It's worth waiting for, but what's going on in the next few videos is I'm showing the clinical assessment where somebody may have a problem in a part of the body. They may have neck problems. This lady had a problem in the middle of her back, and frequently it's a lower back problem. You can test the associated muscles that are related to the problem. And let's say that the problem is sciatica. And so we're going to test muscles related to that, the fifth lumbar and the first sacral segment. And I can see the muscles. Okay, so we can just go through this then, and I'll just talk through this. We find out that the muscle is what we call inhibited. It's weak. We use a traditional hemp extract either through the skin, topically, or orally, and we retest the muscle. To see if there's been any change. And with the products that are in the marketplace, most of the time, the alcoholic and the CO2 extracted products do not change the neurology of response to, and this is a physical neurological test. It's very substantial evidence of how something is working. And most of the time they don't change it. Yeah, let's go ahead to the next slide. So, and then just stay on this slide. So then if you come along and you use the Heaven Sent Hemp extract, that it is a trade secret extract of an unusual thing that we figured out, where we don't extract it with CO2 and we don't extract it with alcohol and ethanol, and we make lots of ethanolic extracts. And I love ethanolic herbal extracts. But we didn't find that the hemp worked that well, so we figured out another way that ends up being an olive oil. And it's an extremely labor-intensive method of producing these extracts. But the bioenergetic, apparently the frequency emission does something to cause the nervous system to do cell signaling. And why is that important? It's really important when you look at the major groups of compounds. This is going down into this, what's up on the screen now, which should be full screen if we could get it that way, but people still can read it. These parts, let's go down just a little bit. The phytocannabinoids activate these things called G protein receptors. Stop there. Let's not go any further. So they activate these things called G protein coupled receptors, which makes things go through the cell membrane all the way into the nucleus of the cell, and it actually can cause changes in the way genes encode and express. Gene changes, so it's nutrigenomics. Very, very, very important. That is the phytocannabinoids. They also act, and this is what people don't know, this was something most doctors are not aware of, and you don't see this in the literature, all of these other kinds of receptors, which I've listed here. There are 4 other different kinds of cell receptors. These are things that allow something from the outside, in this case, the hemp extract, to initiate changes in the cell wall and send signals into the cell to make it start functioning differently. And it does huge, phytocannabinoids act with all of these different transport mechanisms that get information into the cell. So I call these proper hemp extracts the great communicators. They have a way of really getting information into the body to help it regulate itself. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Those are phytocannabinoids. That's one of the groups of compounds in hemp. The next group, let's stop here, are called terpenes or terpenoids. And this statement is from about a 600-page long book written by a couple of Northern European researchers, and I think this is probably 2004 or 2006 text on terpenes. And I want to read this, it's so important. They have important functions as messengers within organisms, within organs, within the cell body, and particularly between the cell surface and the cell nucleus. They can influence cell stage and mitosis, cell division, resulting in changes in morphology and differentiation. Terpenoid end products can interfere with, it means change, gene expression, or more directly act as key enzyme regulators. So the field of nutrigenomics knows that other things can change gene expression. Nutrients can. But seeing something that has such an incredibly large repertoire of influencing that is striking, very unusual. And the other group is called polyphenols, phenolics, and they are in other herbs, flavonoids are part of that group, and it's well known that they're very therapeutic. So many herbs are famous because of the polyphenols, the flavonoids that they contain, and that's where they are. They have these flavonoids that are well. Hemp has that as just part of its ability to transform our health. Okay, let's go ahead to the next slide. So this is something, and I don't know how it could be available to those people that want to see this, but if you look deeper, why is this type of hemp extract doing something that the other hemp extracts in the marketplace are not doing? And it has to be, as far as I can understand, it has to be because we have done something to conserve bioresonance, the bioharmonic aspect, which apparently is being destroyed when you use normal ethanol and alcohol and CO2 extraction. Those methods of extracting are very efficient at preserving the chemistry of the plant. That is, you can see that the terpenes are there, and you can see that the phytocannabinoids are there, and those will show on analysis. And all the good companies are supposed to, by law, have a certificate of analysis. Ours do, all of our batches do, that shows chemically what is in the product. And I'm going to repeat that. All of these good companies have tests which show chemically what's in the product. That has very little to do with what the product does bioenergetically. And there's the whole crux of everything. The whole crux of this presentation is, if you want to understand cell signaling, you have to look at the next level, which is quantum biology. So this link, which we really can't get into it, it's too complicated. It's the most brilliant 28-page presentation I've ever seen from one of the smartest and most brilliant young, William Brown, as a molecular biologist. Just absolutely magnificent summary in these 28 pages. And let's not go through this too much. It's just very, very complicated. But this requires someone to have an interest in quantum physics and quantum biology, but even more to understand the subtle world of cell signaling. And what he explains in those 28 pages is that a lot is going on in the body as if the nervous system was conducted of fiber optic cable, which is able to transmit information at about the speed of light. So that is a huge finding, and it may not or may never appear in mainstream scientific research because it's very hard or impossible to control that with chemotherapy, drugs that are licensed as prescription items. By the way they're made, they're not going to do that. So when mainstream medicine is talking about altering DNA, they're going to do it in a very, very different way. And they're doing that, and they're working on whole different ways of altering your DNA. And I'll just bet you down the line, they're going to have a huge number of unforeseen events that are deleterious. But if you can stimulate the nervous system and watch what I'm doing every day when I treat patients, I'll say, okay, so this neuromuscular pathway is failing, and we give you this substance, and all of a sudden the neuromuscular pathway is not failing anymore. And then we look at it over the next several weeks, and sometimes over many months, and we say, I wonder if all the literature that says that hemp is neuroprotective, are we witnessing that in action? And that's a question. As a manufacturer, and I'm associated with the company, we can't make a statement that would be some sort of a drug claim, but it's something that people need to watch for. Is it actually healing the nervous system at a way that I haven't observed in 41 years of practice? So I lost function of one muscle group that was related to neck injuries. And after a year and a half of using this, my condition would have been surgical. After a year and a half of using this, that muscular failure, neuromuscular failure, is gone. I have my full strength restored. And as a chiropractor who really loves and respects adjusting, I don't need that area adjusted anymore because it appears to be healed. So, if that's going on in many of my patients, as I suspect it is unique in the world. And that's the message. So what we're trying to get people, and any of the people that are here that are health professionals, we got about 20 minutes left. Let's go ahead to the next slide and see if there's something left here. Okay, so let's get to the key takeaway. But I want any health professionals, please, I guess they can be able to type in questions, and I can try and answer that. So the key takeaway is that there are huge protective abilities. One of the things that I do is when I'm watching a new patient, and by the way, I'm doing more and more 3-day intensives. I'm getting people that have a real interest at getting to the root of their problems, and so I see them 3 days in a row in my Nashville practice. And we do this one of the things that we do when they come in, and it almost doesn't matter what their problems are, is we look at the ability of the brain to resist a high magnetic field. And it's a really important, simple test. I just expose the brain to 7,000 Gauss magnetic field. It's just a really great, huge magnet. And I watch to see does it cause neuromuscular weakness in other parts of the body? It shouldn't. If your brain is working properly and has the ability to resist magnetic fields, it won't weaken. You'd be surprised as to how many people weaken. That's one thing I look at. And then, we do the type of testing I was showing where we just catalog one day at a time, first day, next day, third day, how many things we can change in the body that have not been changing from these people that have been under long-term care with other holistic practitioners. That's kind of the thing that I specialize in. But that's how I've discovered what hemp is doing, our kind of hemp extract, that apparently most of the other products are not doing. And sometimes they do. Okay, so it's not that they never do. It's just on the average, what I see most of the time, they don't have all of these effects that we're listing here. And then I do a test where we percuss the bone very strongly. And again, we're testing the receptors, the joint receptors, and we're also testing probably the bone itself just by reverberation. And that shouldn't cause weakening. It may be associated with lack of bone density because I haven't studied that, so we don't know that. But we know that it's producing an abnormal response. Then we administer our liquid extract of the fresh plant concentrated juice. We call that CHT plus. We administer that, which does not have CBD in it, and it really hardly has any terpenes either, but it has all these other compounds that are naturally part of the liquid phase of the concentrated juice of the plant. The literature lists over 500 compounds in cannabis. So this kind of an extract has a bunch of those. And then we see that it reverses that bone percussion weakness. Okay, so when people retest, I have one of the videos that showed that, which we were not able to play. So that just simply leaves me going, wow, this stuff is doing a lot. You can use other products. When people bring in their own products, very often I'll use their product first in the test system, see if it changes the resistance to a high magnetic field in the brain, see if their product changes the ability of joints to withstand percussion. And if their product does do that, I go, great, that product's helping you. If it doesn't, we will switch to our product and test it to see if it does. So what I'm trying to get doctors to do is what I call the CBD or the hemp extract CBD challenge. Test the products in this way. And so we produce this little page, which we want people to have this. And it doesn't matter because, if we're trying to get this into the world of holistic health, it's not about a proprietary product. If anybody else can show me a product that does this, then they should do it. I mean, that's what this is about. It's about any doctor. If you've got a CBD product that you love, put it in this test system, and that's what we say. That's the health challenge. That's the hemp CBD, the hemp extract challenge. It's if it does it, great. If it doesn't do it, then test our products, which generally will perform. So that's what I want people to start doing, and I think in the long run they're going to see, wow, that's really interesting. This new form of extraction does something that we need to pay attention to. And that's the point is have everybody start testing the products. Don't read product literature, and don't, for heaven's sakes, whatever you do, never buy a hemp product based on the number of milligrams that's in it. It has nothing to do with biological activity. All it has to do is how many milligrams of a substance have been concentrated down. You can get 1 ounce bottles that have 2,500 milligrams of CBD, provable by lab test. And those products don't change these pathways that I'm talking about when we put them in this test system that I use. So, interesting point. All right, let's take some questions if we've got any.
Sure, let's do that. I was going to say everybody can use your raise hand icon, and then we'll call on you. Charles, I see your hand up.
Thanks, Jeff, and thanks, Dr. Davis. Fantastic presentation. If in your muscle testing and other tests you find that your live extract CBD oil is good, but maybe some other nutrients you're finding might be also valuable for the patient, how do you complement the CBD oil with other products or treatments?
And that's a very good question. Over a period of about 30 years, there are a group of doctors that worked together. I think the last time I took a seminar in the training on this, there was mentioned that they'd used 10,000 patients in a holistic healthcare patients over a period of about 30 years to build a new database that is a computerized database that shows when you do a very carefully prepared blood test, and this is by LabCorp, this is a major laboratory, you do very specific tests, liver function, and so on and so on. That test comes back to us. We plug it into this software, and it tells us what these doctors found over all these years, what nutrients were associated with the types of patterns that they're seeing in the blood test. Pretty amazing, really interesting. And then I will test those nutrients in some of these neuromuscular test systems to see if it looks like they're indicated for the patient. So the test, which is a physical test based on blood test, shows that the patient needs stuff, okay? And I don't always do that test, but if people want to do that, it's really great. It's like a $300, costs us $300, and it's about $1,400 worth of testing if you had to pay for it in a normal lab test. So don't have to have that. If people want to get that documentation, it's great, but we still look for some products that have substantial amounts of micronutrients, which typically are not liquids. They're mostly tableted, capsulated products, which have very high B vitamins and all of the essential micronutrients and macronutrients, magnesium, calcium, and then things like zinc, perhaps even molybdenum, and some of these things in much lower quantities, selenium certainly. These are things that people are deficient in. So, and in my practice, and all the good doctors that I respect, they absolutely talk about changing diet. So a product like this, why is it so unique? Because of what it does for cell signaling and what it does to move us out of a stress mode into parasympathetic healing. Do you remember that? That was in that picture. That's the takeaway. Does it provide all the nutrients? Absolutely not. It doesn't provide the nutrients that you need. You still have to change your diet. You still have to take other very high quality products, which we do. And I do that in my practice. I think the CHT Plus someday will be able to pay the gazillions of dollars And it's possible to do it. It's just very expensive. It's probably, I wouldn't be surprised if it would be at least $50,000, probably more, to test. Well, it'd be more. It'd be over $100,000 to test all the nutrients, the micronutrients that are in that liquid, the CHT plus that we have. We know they're there because they're in the hemp plant, but we don't have that documented in our product, so we can't make any claims on that. All we can say is that it's a concentrated juice of the hemp plant, and it's absolutely wonderful stuff. But it's got a lot of nutrients in it. We just don't have it cataloged. But anyway, a long answer to a question, but it's very important to take care of other nutritional needs and diet.
Brent, we did get a question typed in here. One, have you thought about getting a patent on what you're doing? And then also I hear there's quality issues with CBD. What's the story on that?
Yeah, well, I had the world's only patented flower essences called Floralive. And for those folks that are interested in things that can change mood and outlook in your life, which are, they're not drug things, they're not nutrients. They're just what flower essences are, which is something to change the psychological, the spiritual, mental, emotional framework. Go to floralive.com. Those things were, and still some of the patents are there, but I'm not going to renew them. They were there for 20 some years as the world's only patented flower essences. And there's really, people could try and copy it. It turns out my flower essences cannot be copied, so we just let it go. There was no reason for patents. A patent nowadays, you got to have, you need to be aware that if you do a patent, you better be probably a multinational company, something like Apple or Microsoft, where where you can put in at least $500,000 to just begin defending your patent. It's just a good way to have your product stolen. So we're not going to patent this. These things are just trade secrets that we've learned, and there really is no good reason to patent it. That's our opinion now.
What about quality issues in the market in general? Is it all over the map, or are they all the stuff you tried?
All over the map. So we're complying, with all the FDA requirements. We have, just all of the compliance for current good manufacturing practices. And you can look on our bottles. You can use a scanner that you can have on your phone, and it's a QR code scanner. And if you look at that on the box that the products are packaged in, it takes you to the website where you automatically see all of the quality control tests that we've done. And we had an inspector from the FDA look at that and said, well, that's really good, and yes, it is, because you can't do anything any better than that. Some other companies have that ability. We were one of the first, but I think it's going to become a law, probably, that you're going to have that ability for people to monitor the online tests for the batch that they're taking. It probably will become a law. Right now, if that happened, 90+% of all the products would be out of the marketplace because they don't have those quality control standards. But this is what I'm trying to tell you. The companies that do have, and there's certainly some very, very good companies, much larger than ours, that do have all of this quality control stuff, they can show you the CBD levels, but nobody can show you the bioenergetic character because there's no way to measure that. And I know some scientists in Europe that are developing a way, but it's still not out there yet. You can use electrodermal testing, and you can use muscle testing. And if people are proficient with that, it's great. But my opinion is neuromuscular tests, and all doctors they receive a year of neurology. Every health professional should be able to do this little health test that I'm talking about to see if the stuff is working. Yeah, and that's it. And then look at how high. Turns out that when we produce different levels of CBD content, we produced like 300 milligrams per ounce, and then we produced 600 milligrams, and I think we got one that was like 900 or 1,000 milligrams per ounce. The 1,000 milligrams per ounce we'd have to charge more for, but I don't think it really does anything more than the 600 milligrams per ounce, which is what we have. So there you go. Let's take any other questions.
Okay, that was good. Charles, did you have a follow-up question?
Sure. And for anyone else in the audience, just click the hand raise icon, and Jeff will call on you. Dr. Davis, in promoting this webinar, by coincidence, there was a great article that was just published showing that the medical product most searched online is CBD oil, which surprised me. tell me, why are so many folks searching this oil, and when they get their hands on it, from your experience, are they getting the results they seek? And if not, how would your product help them?
Well, yeah, and I've been looking at that question. When you see the massive groundswell of interest in a product, remember I've been doing this over 40 years. And I've never even seen anything remotely interested in this. So, and it's a lot of people that don't support recreational drug use. So, I mean, yeah, like some of the guys that love this are druggies, but the majority of people right now in the United States that are looking for this are not interested in, being high. The reason that this stuff is gaining such a huge groundswell is even if the product is not particularly bioactive, as long as it still has some pretty good CBD content, on some level, initially, it helps people. Because if it didn't, they wouldn't keep buying it. So what I saw when I was doing this evaluation over 2 years is, oh, okay, well, this stuff did help them, but then it seems to stop helping them after a while. And when you search the literature, there's a group of researchers that talked about endocannabinoid deficiency. So it looks as though when the body is in a state of exhaustion, what we call adrenal stress, but it's really much more than that. When it's in a state of exhaustion, the endocannabinoid system and many of the receptors aren't working that well, and that really regulates the body. When you stick in CBD, if it's of any quality at all, it starts jump starting all of these poor exhausted receptors, and things start to change in the body of any kind of a good thing. So it appears to me that the difference is our product certainly does that, but where it appears to be continuing is that when their stuff stops acting, in other words, when they've repaired some degree of the endocannabinoid deficiency, it appears, and I'm very carefully using it, it appears, because it's not a fact, we can't establish that. Each person has to make their own individual assessment, but it looks to me like our product is going beyond that and continues to support the endocannabinoid system when the other lesser quality products have stopped working, okay? And I hope that answers it, because it's a very good question. Most high quality products will help people to some extent, but then the highest quality seems to then make a continuing, difference.
Charles, did you pop your hand up again?
Jeff, Dr. Davis, how would one get your product, Jeff?
Well, yeah.
Well, two things. Well, we're going to have, when this video is released, you'll see we're going to have some links, and actually I'm going to have a link for that big 28-page document and stuff in the credits. We'll have a short version, so you'll be able to get access to that, and you'll be able to find out everything you need to know. It's pretty exciting, what's starting to happen, and they've been. One of the things, I don't know if you had mentioned that you guys are pretty vertical in that you have your own facility where you're actually growing the hemp as opposed to buying stuff commercially.
Thank you for mentioning that. In 40-some years of working with herbs, I am now 68. Okay, so we just had our first little baby boy about 4 weeks ago. So at the time that he's being born, imagine this, there's 5 acres of hemp that needs to be harvested. And there is no herb in the world, probably, other than maybe saffron, that requires more hand work. It was like intensely. So yeah, I was out there, took about a week or two out of my practice. I told my patients, hey guys, I'm going to be out in the hemp field. And I had my hands in that. And you know what? I was exhausted. I worked 12-hour days with a whole group of guys that were hired to harvest. And I had the fun, although exhausting, of doing that. So then that product was dried. It goes through, it gets its certificate of analysis. And we now are storing that. And yeah, we got, several thousand pounds. So, and that, we produce that on my farm. So yes, it's completely vertically integrated from the seed to the final product. And that does make a difference. It really does.
Well, certainly, as you well know, you know exactly what everything is and where it's coming from. So that's fantastic. Jane, I think I see your hands up there. She's asking, do you test for chemicals such as glyphosate?
Glyphosate, first of all, that's a very good question. You want to make sure your stuff doesn't have glyphosate. So glyphosate typically comes in conventional products, commercial corn and so on, where weed herbicides such as the unfortunately famous Roundup, is being used. Now, the first thing is that's all prohibited. When you grow hemp that's being used, you cannot have it cannot be exposed to commercial pesticides. Even if it's not certified organic. We hope that we'll be certified organic. My farm was certified organic in the late 90s. And then we didn't do the paperwork to keep up the organic certification, but it's been organic since 1994. So all of our products are grown organically. We hope to have certification of that. But even if they're not grown organically, and I have to give credit, there's a lot of good farmers out there, they're not using stuff that would result in glyphosate. Okay, so the question is, it won't be in there because none of the stuff is exposed to it.
Excellent. That's an important point to make, that everybody's kind of on the same boat when it comes to that.
Oh yeah, and it's something I have got a patient of mine. I love the guy. He's a very large manager of properties. He has a large company that manages properties, and the guy comes in for holistic health, and I said, "Are you guys still using glyphosate? Is it even on the market? Is Roundup still on the market?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, it's still on the market." Can you imagine with $1 billion of lawsuits, it's still on the market?
Well, they need the money to come from somewhere to pay for those lawsuits, so there
you
go.
Yeah. Well, they tried to pay or bought them for $60 billion to try and bury it, but I guess it's not going away.
Amazing. Well, in any event, I was going to say, unfortunately, we're kind of drawing to a close here on our timetable, so I definitely want to tell you thanks for being on here. And like I said, look for the announcements, and there'll be plenty more things that will be popping out about this as the days and weeks move forward.
And let's give one thing. Make sure, and if you don't have it, get to me, that we have the 4-page summary of that 61-page article. Because the 61 page is just too complicated. The 4-page summary, and I think you've got it. We want to.
Okay, that's fine. We'll make sure we'll have that posted, and I'll have that at a place where you can pull it down if there's an active link. Yes, go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, we just started a bit late, so I'm not sure when we have to stop. But could you explain, Jeff, as part of a licensed naturopath prescribing CBD oil as a diagnosis, and therefore okay for the sharing part of our strategy to pay for this, for the recovery from expensive sicknesses and accidents, and then also from a medical spending account or an HSA from the first dollars?
Sure. Yeah. Well, that would be the reality of it too, because this is a medicinal situation. If it's being prescribed by a licensed person, just like Dr. Davis here, then you'd be able to use that to pay for it. So
but it's not a script item. These are, as opposed to medical marijuana, which requires a medical script. Right. These are not script items.
But what I'm saying is, you could also pay for supplements and the like. This similarly would allow you to do that. So that's what's nice about where this lands, as far as people that are working with us on the health program side. Yeah,
we have that. It is a nutritional. It's a supplement for sure.
Right. Exactly. So real fast, Charles, just do a real fast thumbnail on who's coming up here before we close out the night.
Sure. And thanks again, Dr. Davis, and hosting Jeff. We always preview the next 4 weeks' guest. And next week, we have the fairly well-known paleocardiologist, Dr. Jack Wolfson, who will take care of your heart attacks at the high level. But when helping folks avoid heart problems, he tackles the root cause and not just symptoms. So that'll be next week. And then in 2 weeks, we recommend, as you use our medical spending account, to go see the high-level dentist who makes a little natural medicine in their practice. And Dr. Jerry Curatola has the only prebiotic toothpaste on the market, and we'll talk about the mouth-body connection. In 3 weeks, we may empower you as a cash payer, but all those choices we give you still are limited by the government, big business, medical collusion, and we need your help with advocacy. So David Ballot has his own organization, Free to Care.
So in any event, Dr. Davis, appreciate you being here today, and we will definitely stay back in touch and keep everyone updated as to how progress is going.
Very good, my pleasure.